Hey Travis, what's up, man?
Hey, you hear me?
Yep, gotcha.
Cool.
Waiting for Jesse to come in. Guys are just jumping on.
Cool, man. Sounds good. Are you drinking pints?
No, I'm
No?
not. No, I'm
Trying
actually
to lay up.
drinking a fucking pineapple coconut drink.
Oh, okay. An alcoholic one?
No, there's no alcohol in it.
All
There's
right.
actually times where I'm not drinking, if you can believe that.
That's good, man. Got to dry up a little
I'm not drying out at all.
bit.
It's not a constant thing like everyone thinks it is. Hang on. There's like technical difficulty.
Yeah, no worries. This is my first Instagram live, so I hopefully don't have any technical difficulties myself.
It's my audio muffled.
Say it again.
Guys are saying I sound muffled.
You or me?
Me.
Okay, good.
That'll probably be worse.
Oh, I hear you better.
Be better.
Yeah, I can hear you better. I don't know about everybody else.
We'll go.
If it's better for me to come off AirPods, I can too.
Uh, if Jesse can't get in here, we'll just get going.
Okay.
All right. We can start. Jesse will come in. Jesse, if you're on here, keep saying you're unable to join. Just like log off, come back on, man, and send me a request to join. So let's talk about it. So forgot everybody. Obviously, if you're on this live, you know who I am. Travis, I'll let you introduce yourself, whatever level of background you want to give, so everybody knows who we're talking to.
Sure. My name is Travis Harless. My background in law enforcement, military. I was in the Marine Corps from 2002 2006, 0311, three Iraq deployments. I got out in '06, became a cop in 2007, and I was a cop in my hometown, Bakersfield, California, with Bakersfield PD for about 18 and a half years. Bunch of like every different assignment. I was on the SWAT team there for 15 of those years. The last 6 years, I was a supervisor, a patrol sergeant, and then a TL on the SWAT team. And then I just recently left the department, not because of anything negative or anything. I didn't get fired or kicked out or anything. I just wanted to get out of California for my family. I got young kids. Wife couldn't take it anymore, so I moved to the free state of Texas. Got hired with a new agency out in Texas, and I'm in the process right now of getting certified as an officer. Going through that process here in Texas. Got about 3 more weeks.
Right on. Awesome. So what I want to talk about, kind of over the last few days. Yeah, I think it's been a little bit, maybe a week. Posted a video, kind of a video breakdown of a warrant service that Dallas did that resulted in shooting an armed suspect, and you had some comments and it created more discussion, and I think kind of more open discussion that people love to have about this deliberate versus dynamic when it comes to CQB. And a lot of guys, in the law enforcement world are like, hey, deliberate's the way. It goes so far as to where guys are openly like criticizing, very successful teams that are dynamic teams,
Mm-hmm.
who do a lot of stuff, tons of calls for service where they aren't having incident. And then when it does, the armchair quarterbacking comes in,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say that in terms of that one specifically, if you guys haven't seen it, you can look at Travis's page. You know, police come in, they're moving through kind of a built up, house area, encounter some dogs, there's some flashbangs. scare the dogs away, make it to the uh, top of a deck, whereas the front door, and are greeted with the door opens and a guy with a rifle that ultimately, ended up with that guy getting shot. Whether that was like a dynamic or deliberate, however you equate it, at the end of the day, they're at the front door. As soon as they arrive to the front door, the door opens with a gun, you know, um, and the guy, begins to move the gun, and the officer, handles the problem and moves on from that. But it creates that idea that, like, are we, or is law enforcement creating, situations that are more dangerous, right? It goes back into bleeding this idea of this deliberate, slow approach, with the overemphasis on officer safety is the way to go for CQB. And I know we've talked, quite a bit before this conversation about, kind of how you feel in your experiences. So why don't you say, like, hey, like, how do you feel about that, the deliberate versus dynamic?
Yeah, so where I come from, like we kind of talked about this, you said before, we uh, trained I'd say at least 50% of our training was dedicated for dynamic entries, and then less than 50% for deliberate. The philosophy that from my old agency was that dynamic should be reserved for hostage rescue, active killing, active shooter style events where there's immediate threat to life, and not not for the preservation. Well, this is we kind of talked about this, but this is kind of a low tier argument, not for the preservation of evidence, um, but yeah. So that's kind of the philosophy. I guess that there's the NTOA paper that's out, that I just read, like, to be honest, like 2 hours ago, saying that they're against the no knock dynamic, which is a tactic that where I come from, that they don't there are no knock. There are no knock warrants where I come from. That's a tactic that, or uh, legal a legal issue, and a tactic that we never used.
So I would say for most SWAT teams and PDs, for everyone, the idea like no knock warrants are pretty much off the table,
Mhm.
right? Everything, not everything. There are still teams that have the ability to do that, but by and large, the no knock stuff, it is always a knock and announce,
Mhm.
right? So, you know, whether or not you're going to hit it hard or hit it slow, and that's one of the things I hate, where, and Jesse, if guys, this Jesse, uh, come from the same place. We share a lot of the same ideas, same training backgrounds, and same kind of pedigree. But from the when the assault happens, if you willingly give up surprise, right? You look at that kind of triad, the principles of CQB: surprise, speed, violence of action. When you give one up, you have to leverage the other one.
Mhm.
Um, and to me, that's not open for debate. Guys that say it is, they have a misunderstanding of the technique of CQB that they're using, and why it was created, or they've been sold goods, or they don't have the skills and abilities to actually, move fast and leverage speed once they willingly give up surprise.
Mhm.
Um, and to me, that's where the argument comes in, where guys are like, well, we don't have to go fast. And I was like, you don't have to go fast right up to the point when you do, right? And if you have hostage rescue as one of kind of your mission essential tasks
Mhm.
as a team, then you do need to go fast when it's that time. And I think if my job was to say, hey, I have to run 100 meters in 11 seconds, why would I ever practice to do it in 15 seconds? Right? I know if I can go fast and hit something fast and hard, as a professional, I
Mhm.
know that I can back off and do it slow and create more processes, because conditions are in my favor to do those things. Right.
Mhm.
And before I turn it over to Jesse, the the way that I look at, like, right, when you talk about anything outside the threshold, right, assessing the threshold, all of that comes from a combat clearance technique that was kind of propagated and developed in the military.
Mhm.
in response to a very specific threat that does not exist in law enforcement. And in the development of that, there were kind of two conditions that I think everyone agreed in order to do this, to play games in the most dangerous part or one of the most dangerous parts of the house, conditions have to be met that make it safe. Those are the risk mitigating factors for that. One is it has to be dark outside. You do it under nod, so it has to be completely black. If I'm backlit, then me standing and fucking around in the doorway doesn't make sense. The
Mhm.
second one is the walls have to stop bullets.
Mhm.
So I agree. If those conditions are present, then by all means, pie the doorway. You also, I think, the misconception that law enforcement that is because it's a copy of a copy of a copy of a technique
Yeah.
misunderstand is we don't pie the fucking doorways from inside the doorway. You have standoff from the doorway so
Mhm.
that the angles are in your favor in the event that you see somebody,
Can you
as
flesh
well
that out
as
a little bit? What that means?
so.
Like,
So if I'm clearing a compound and I'm not in a 3 foot hallway, right,
mhm.
which we never are when you're doing that, I'm 10 feet off the doorway,
Yeah, and you're
not
working it from outside.
not sitting in it. And I'm also introducing IR light illuminators. I'm looking at it under nods, right? And they can't see me because it's dark,
What
right?
about during
That
the daytime?
absolutely not. You don't fucking do it. It's both dumb and stupid.
Okay,
Like
so
pie
you're
the
not.
doorway in the daytime makes zero sense.
Okay.
It does. Why would I do that? As fast as I see the adversary, he sees me. Now this
Yeah.
is just a racing bullets thing,
Do you
right? And
think? Do you think? In response, I'm just asking. I'm curious.
yep.
Like, so the people that well, I mean, you're not going to encounter someone who's as good or better of a shooter than you are. But typically speaking, like the people that you're encountering aren't going to be as good as the officer or the military guy. Um, and one line of thinking is if I have to get into a gunfight, it would be better to be at distance as opposed to right like a room distance. Does that
So
make sense?
so
Like
so
if I'm outside the
our
room and I'm
yeah,
getting in a
no.
gunfight, I'm farther away, and that leads to my advantage because I'm probably a better shooter than that guy. And the closer I get to him, the more of a 50-50 kind of gunfight
So,
it
so
becomes.
I would say, are you a better shooter than that guy? That's debatable.
Uh,
Is when police are clearing a structure, are they at a not required to, but asked to be more accountable with their rounds and
yeah,
more precise with their shooting?
yeah, they're accountable for every round.
Right. Well, that's an absolute fucking lie. They're not, right? Because police officers routinely shoot bullets into fucking God's green earth everywhere else that
Yeah, that's true.
don't hit their target, and no one is ever held accountable for that.
Okay.
So, like, that's a myth. But they are at least asked to be somewhat precise and accountable for their rounds.
Hmm.
Are bad guys required to do the same?
No. Yeah,
No.
obviously not. Yeah.
So, in terms of like you ask, like you think that's a risk mitigating thing, like I'm gonna if I see him at the same time he sees me, but I have to now arrive at an aiming solution, right, and discriminate the target. Does an adversary need to do that?
No. Yeah, they have the advantage, especially in an American household that's got sheetrock and, wood studs to be able to shoot through walls, of course.
Yeah, so now is it a technique that is actually safer, or is it a technique that makes officers feel safer?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know the answer.
Jesse, what's your thoughts? Because you do a lot of active shooter training.
Yeah, it's Travis, right?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, man, Matt. Thanks for hosting. Just kind of what I've been up to is over the past 2 years now, around 230 officers through single officer active assailant response course or active shooter response. And let's see. I think Matt, like you've been talking a lot about kind of the errors of logic in the application side. I want to back up though to the training side, and
Yep.
you touched on it with your running example. which is great. But just from my perspective, whenever we're looking at how are we going to train, we want to look at, okay, what's going to be the greatest test of skills that, you know, is not a total one-off of, hey, for me, like, hey, for a duty officer or for like an SRO, because those are, that's like my primary guys that I'm working with. Like, I love working with SWAT guys. They're awesome. But to my knowledge, the best SWAT teams in the U.S., you know, take 30 to 45 minutes to be able to spin up and get approval and go.
Yep. Yeah,
right?
it's going to be
And
the SRO who goes to the active shooter at your kid's school. It's not going to be the SWAT team that show. They'll get there eventually, but it's going to be long over by the time they get there.
Okay, great. So I'm on the right track there. Good. So when I look at a duty officer, I'm like, okay, what is the most demanding thing that you would have to do? It's got to be active shooter response, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that has to be the highest skill demand situation that they could show up to. And then pulling from data from the FBI, we've seen that more often than not, like 87% of successful active shooter interdictions happen with a single responding officer.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're taking the highest skill requirement for like a team of officers, but now it's just one officer.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we were looking at in terms of, hey, okay, so that right there should design for us a training parameter, or from where we want to derive our training, like this event. That would be the highest requirement course of action for the job. And then I would ask you, being an officer, would you say that if you have a cop who you're like, hey, that is the guy for active shooter response right there. Like if there was one guy in my whole department who had to respond to an active shooter by himself, that is the guy. Would you say that that guy's also then going to be like pretty competent at almost every other duty requirement as an officer?
Yep, for sure.
Would that be a fair assessment? So to get to my point here, then we focus our training on the skill demand for that, because everything else is kind of a step down from that for me, logically. And so when you take a guy and you're like, hey, you know, in training all the time, we're doing this very slow, possibly incorrect tactic, and we have this expectation that if you attend one active shooter training a year or whatever put on by whoever, that you'll rise to the occasion, you'll suddenly gain this extra speed that you'll be able to apply in that situation. It becomes laughable. And that's not just how people train for tactical type of work. Like that you can look at almost every other sport. Like a good example would be the Brazilians dominated in soccer for a long time, and no one exactly could figure out why. And some British guys flew down to Brazil, and they noticed that the Brazilians were all playing this game called micro. All right, micro is what they called it. But basically, it was a soccer field that was a quarter of the size, and it was enclosed in a cage, so the ball could never go out of bounds. And they just started running some numbers, and they saw that the amount of time that these guys had to think was reduced because of the size of the field, and their skill at ball handling and everything else had to be through the roof because there was no out of bounds. The ball could bounce off the cage. And so they constantly had to be thinking, moving, making decisions, and getting on the ball. And it was literally just like a perfect little training vector because of how high the skill demand was to drive up skill. I think that a big problem I see with law enforcement is they just spend all this time on low risk, which is another conversation, low risk training, right? Hey, what's the safest training? And then also like low skill training. And I feel like the priorities there are inverted. And if they instead were to focus on, hey, what's the highest skill demand task that we have to accomplish, and started looking at their training from that perspective, that you would see this paradigm shift that's necessary in law enforcement, that like Matt and I are working to kind of hopefully
Yeah.
drive that shift. Like that's what we're hoping. Matt, would you
I
agree
think,
with that?
yeah, I think from my experience, like with training cops and talking to, cops across the country, the most likely thing, in any warrant service or any CQB event is that the suspect's going to give up. Would you agree with that from your experience?
Yeah, like 99% of the time, like they're not wanting to shoot it out with the police.
Yeah,
That's
I think
they're
that's, the most
more than
likely
that.
thing.
More than 99% of the time, they don't want to shoot out with the police. If the typical resistance you'll get is somebody trying to flee, somebody trying to destroy
Yeah.
evidence, or maybe just getting a little squirrely and like physically resisting, and but like to go to guns with the cops, like no one, I say no one, almost no one wants to do that.
So what would be the most dangerous course of action that a suspect could take?
That he could take, yeah, would be to go to guns with the cops.
Right. So if a suspect is, we're going to knock and announce, we're going to give up, surprise willingly. And I
Yeah.
understand that, why we do that. We do the same thing in the military because I just parked a helicopter, 20 feet from the front door. So the
Mhm.
surprise is gone. So does it make sense that if I minimize your time distance to actually make a decision, right? If I minimize the amount of time for you to gun up or get ready, or I
Mhm.
start taking time away from you to make a decision, does that make it safer or more dangerous for the officers moving into the building?
Well, it just depends on the decision that's being made, right? And
The,
that's where
the decision is his most dangerous course of action is to fight.
yeah,
So
I
if
could see
I
that argument that like if we get in there, like you said, speed, surprise, violence of action. There's no surprise because they know that we're there. That you can overwhelm him before he has the opportunity to, get to his gun or to mount a defense. I
Right.
totally,
It's not about overwhelming them, right? What I'm
mhm.
asking, and this is where it's hard to have the conversation with cops because sometimes you guys have to get out of your own fucking way with this, is if I minimize the amount of time for someone to make a decision to fight me, does
Mhm.
it make it safer or more dangerous for me?
I mean, it's going to be case dependent, is what I would say. It just depends on
No,
what that
it's not.
decision is.
If we sign a social contract to fight in a bar and we go out to the fucking parking lot,
Mhm.
the longer I wait to smash you in the face, the more
Yeah,
dangerous it gets for me.
yeah.
Yeah, there's no difference when we're fighting with guns. But this is where it comes into, like, and honestly, it's like you can't even answer you're like,
There's
well,
no
it's
disagreement for
case
me on
dependent.
that. Yeah,
If
I don't disagree with that at all. I
if I
100%
say,
agree.
hey, you know, beat on the door, it's police, search for it, and we knock the door in, and I am in the back bedroom in 5 seconds.
Mhm.
Is that better than if it takes me 45 seconds to get back there in terms of safety for the officer?
Yes. Yeah.
I would I would say it is. I would say it's significantly better,
Yeah.
but now it relies heavily on the individual officer's hard skill, his ability
Mhm.
to execute, a technique of CQB, regardless of what that is, and go from one task to the next task with no delay and
Mhm.
understand the information that he's collecting the whole way and what he's doing and everyone in the team being on the same page. So
Yeah.
I do believe, like, right, a faster approach at CQB and hitting a structure a little bit harder requires more on the individual officer. So the question would be, why do so many teams default to a much slower, more deliberate, you know, technique that they think is going to make it safer? Is it safer because they're never opposed, or is it truly safer?
Uh, it's definitely safer because they're never opposed, and that's the problem in law enforcement. Is like we're so rarely opposed that when we are opposed, it's hard to gather like good data and make good assessment. So I don't have an answer, but I can definitely like agree with your argument and go along with that. And I think I'd like to get to where we probably maybe where the point of disagreement is, because I agree, like if you can get in there within 5 seconds and be on top of him, that's going to be safer for the officers for sure. Um, but the point where I have a problem, like when I made that video and I made another one a couple days before for a search warrant in Florida, and I have another one that I haven't posted yet for another search warrant in Florida, where the announcement phase isn't or potentially, who knows, because you can't know what's inside the suspect's head at the time, right? But it appears that the announcement phase is so minimal or like non-existent that the suspect's not aware of what's happening as it's happening. So like we're
Yeah.
required to do knock and announce and say, this is the police, we have a search warrant, come to the door, and then wait a reasonable amount of time before we make the entry. And what I'm seeing is it looks like that portion of it is getting minimized, and potentially, again, don't know what's in the suspect's mind at the time, but it's reasonable to think that he didn't know that this was cops, that he thought that this was someone else, and if he would have known it was cops, he would have just surrendered or not
Yeah.
grabbed
So
a gun, because almost nobody, like I said before, wants to get in a gunfight with the police. That's like a
so
no-win
then
situation.
so then why don't you guys just call him an hour before you come to the house? If no one wants to fight,
Mm.
right? Because apparently
Yeah.
all the criminals have amazing amounts of common sense. They don't want to fight, and a reasonable criminal will not make the decision to fight. Why don't you call the house in advance and let them know that we're coming to serve a warrant?
Yeah, you don't do that because you're going to either A, not be there, or B,
But
they're
if
going to
he's
destroy their evidence.
but if he's not there, is that safer for the officers or more dangerous?
If he's not there, then I think it's obviously safer. If there's nobody there, you're
Yeah.
completely unopposed. There's no
And I
humans
think I
inside.
think we would all agree that how many cops have you heard say, like, I'm not trying to rescue dope?
Yeah.
Right? They don't care about the evidence. Right?
I would
In reality,
argue
they don't.
that what I'm getting at isn't really so much the dynamic versus deliberate, but like the overall approach that could be different, that would be better for not only for the investigation to build a better case against the suspect, but also to be able to eliminate that ambiguity. Like
Yeah.
if I've worked a bunch of narcotic search warrants where like we set up and we utilize surveillance. You allow that suspect to get out, to get away from the house, and then you stop him and you detain him away from his house.
So
And
I
then,
think everyone would agree, right? Yes, hitting him in open, catching him on the street, catching him in a vehicle, right, is going to be a better environment, right? But then, so let's say if you catch him on the street, do you take him down slow or fast?
fast, yeah,
So if you catch him in a car, do you take him down slow or fast?
yeah, fast.
So what the fuck changes inside the house? Here's my opinion. It's the willingness of officers, and it's the fear and cowardice of officers going into the house. Right?
Yeah.
It's a fear-based approach, because now I'm forced into close proximity, even though on the street it's the exact same proximity. In a vehicle, you have to get just as close as you do inside a structure. So what has changed in the house?
What's changed?
Right?
Well, I would say that it's the reason it's safer, like on the street. Like if I'm going to arrest, so suppose I got the unfortunate task of like, hey, Travis, you have to go arrest Matt Pranka. Like I'm not coming to your house to try to run in there and get you. I'm going to wait until you're out somewhere in the open where you're away from all your rifles and your big guns. Maybe you're carrying a handgun. But you're probably less dangerous when you're out in the open than you are when you're, in your castle with all your equipment.
I think I've seen quite a few vehicle stops where a suspect gets out with a rifle and shoots a cop.
Sure.
Right? So I get it. Like, for the sake of argument, be like, okay, yeah, you're setting conditions where it's going to be in your favor.
Yeah.
Right? Where the likelihood of you having, more guns, right? Okay, I can buy that. But I would say in CQB, when we're going into the house to serve the warrant, we're setting conditions that are in our favor as well, right? We're coming at a time of our choosing, right? When he's unaware of it, right? And I get we have to knock and announce and tell him we're there. We give up surprise willingly. Now we have to leverage speed, right? Nothing is different than a vehicle assault. There's going to come a time where you pin the guy in, you willingly give up surprise. He knows the police are stopping him, right? So now you leverage speed. And what I'm saying from a principle based approach, nothing is different. When when 2 or 3 cops go to arrest a guy in a parking lot, to not a lethal use of force, but to put hands on him, it is going to make it safer for those officers if they do it aggressively. If
Mhm.
the execution of it is dynamic, is fast.
Yes.
The longer that you give him time to evade or escape or decide or maneuver, the worse it's going to be. The outcome potentially could be for the officers. And
Yes.
what I'm saying is that in my mind, nothing is different between any of these environments. The
Well,
thing
I
is
would
that's
argue.
different
Go ahead. Sorry.
the thing that's different is the demand for skills in the house is different than the demand for skills on the street. It's the difference for demand for skills in a vehicle environment,
Hmm.
right? And that's where the rub is, to go back to tie this back into training, where we can muddy the whole conversation down with like, well, this and that or whatever. I only want to talk about deliberate versus dynamic CQB. The safest way for all officers is don't serve warrants, surround and call out everything out.
Yeah.
I agree with that 100%,
Hmm.
right? But also, how much do you need to practice a surround and call out from a skills standpoint?
Yeah. Not at all. I say not all. Very little. It's not a difficult
I don't
task to perform.
I don't think you need to practice it. I think you just need to talk through where everyone's going to go,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? Who's on 1, 2, 3, 4 sides, white, black, green, red, whatever, however you do it, who's
Yeah.
on those sides. But do we need to go and sit there on the outside and hold security
No.
on
You
a
don't need to
house?
be repeatedly getting on the horn and making announcements and all that. Yeah. It's not like a
Yeah.
hard skill.
So when it comes back to it, like this becomes a skill issue, right? An
Hmm.
individual skill issue, right? The Anytime you go inside the house, the demand for skill is higher, regardless of what the technique you're using is. If it's limb pen, that's whatever. That's one level. If it's strong wall, that's a different level. If it's POD, that's a different level. Whatever technique you use, it comes down to individual skill. Now, combined with that individual skill, when you specifically talk about CQB, is willingness to win,
Hmm.
right? If what comes out of your mouth is officer safety, your willingness to win is zero, right? That's what I believe. Because
Okay.
how much can you talk about officer safety when you're in an active shooter situation?
Yeah. Not at all. I mean,
What are the priorities of life for a hostage rescue?
yeah, it's the hostage, the uninvolved, and then the officers, and then your suspect, and then
Hostages
evidence.
uninvolved in a sense. Officers are like third or fourth.
They're third, suspects fourth, and then evidence is fifth.
But what happens, because willingness is all but gone in
Hmm.
CQB from the officer standpoint, what happens is now we're going to prioritize, well, this is not going to be safe for the officers. What you're doing is inherently unsafe.
Yeah.
You're taking guns into confined spaces, right? And the worst thing that could happen is you're now going to fight with those guns. There's no way to make this safe.
Hmm.
We mitigate risk through high levels of individual skill and aggressive, technically perfect execution. That's what makes CQB, I'm not going to say safe, manageable and survivable,
Hmm.
right? So it goes back, in my opinion, to the training. I don't care about the minutia shit of we can't knock and announce this technique versus that technique. Cool. I guarantee you I could take Jesse and we could go do limb pen CQB and do it better than anyone teaching limb pen CQB. Why is that?
Hard
I
skills.
think it's hard skills and an understanding of what we're trying to accomplish,
Okay.
right? Regardless of the technique we apply to it, we both understand what we're trying to accomplish with CQB, which is the tactic. The technique is points of domination, limb pen, right? I think it's important for guys to understand that. As soon as guys tell me that limb pen is our tactic, you don't know what you're talking about. Limb pen is your technique
Hmm.
of a tactic. And that's not a semantics thing because it's a demonstration of understanding. It's like someone saying, let me ask you a specific question,
Yeah.
right? I just told you I'm a fucking retard without telling you I'm a retard,
Okay.
right? And
All right. Two things though. I wanted I know we want to get caught up in the other options or whatever, but I would push back on the vehicle assault or the open air takedown.
Mhm.
Because you talk about the three fundamentals or whatever it's referred to as the speed, surprise, violence of action, and how in law enforcement we give up the surprise element because of the Fourth Amendment. But I would argue that you have the surprise element in an open air takedown. You have it in a vehicle takedown that you don't have like on a search warrant. Because when I'm taking somebody open air, like I'm not like the announcement of my presence is like as I'm right there, like I'm on top of you, and now
no,
you see me, and that's the
no, I
announcement of.
know, but you don't understand what I'm saying. At some point in any assault, whether you sneak in, the first thing you lose is surprise. The first time
Mhm.
that the suspect knows he gets pinned in front and back, surprise is up,
Yeah,
right? So we leverage speed. It happens in anything, in any
yeah.
fight, right? You're going to give up surprise.
But I would say the vehicle takedown version of a search warrant would be like you're a block down the road and I haven't gotten anywhere near you and I turn my lights and sirens on before while I'm a block away before I even approach. Like, and then now I've let you know, hey, the cops are over like way down the way. They're coming to arrest you. And then now you have the options to do what you're going to do. Does that make sense? As opposed to just jumping out and being right on top of him. And the first time that he knows or is aware of my presence as a police officer is when I'm right there on top of him. So I'm leveraging, like you said,
Right.
that surprise element.
So the first time he's aware of your presence, you're right on top of him. Could that be a benefit in CQB?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So we can't do that because we have to give up. So
Yeah,
if
that's
I
exactly.
minimize the amount of time that he's aware that I'm there and I make him aware faster, that's going to make it safer, in my opinion. It's going to make it safer in my experience.
What do you mean
You
by
know,
make him aware faster? Can you flesh that out a little bit?
if I minimize from knock and announce, if I'm on top of him, right, and the team comes in, two guys come in, three guys, whatever it is, and you
Mm-hmm.
present the unwinnable fight to him,
Mm-hmm.
that is a better, safer way to do business than me slowly moving down the hallway
Yeah.
and then pushing across the threshold, spending, you know, 15 to 20 seconds in the doorway, which what's a doorway called in a house with CQV?
I don't know
What's
what you mean.
what's the name of that area where the
Fatal
doorway is?
funnel.
Yeah,
Oh, oh,
it's the fatal funnel,
okay, yeah.
not the blowjob zone, is it? It's the fatal funnel.
We can spend
It's
some more
it's
time in the door.
literally in the name. It depends on the door, but it literally is the name. Don't stand in that, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
what's happened, to go back to the training side, is guys don't understand what they're trying to accomplish. They're worried about all of the things they shouldn't be worried about, rather than executing whatever technique they're using at the most aggressive level that the conditions allow you to do it.
Okay. Can I ask you a question? Just curious to get your take on technique. No, I won't say tactic, but a technique that people talk about with the step center technique. What is your feel on that?
I think step center technique was taught at range 37 as a way to cue. It was words that were said as a way to cue people into the snapshot, because they weren't
Mm-hmm.
grasping the concept of the snapshot. It was
Yeah.
never a technique that, when it was taught, was to stop in the doorway.
Mm-hmm.
It's also inefficient
Yeah.
the way that it's taught, because you have guys riding walls all the way along the room, and then at the last possible kind of time frame, they expose themselves to what they could have been owning aggressively and gathering information on, had they chose a more efficient route to be square on the door to get their snapshot. So
Yeah. So and what a lot of guys don't understand, like as fast as that came into range 37 teaching, it was abandoned because of confusion and bastardizing. Like, it's not taught anymore,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the
So
lag on the internet, it's now has become some sort of viable thing, right?
So do you
Go
guys
ahead.
train the snapshot or no?
Yes, every time you enter a room, right? Well, I would say anytime you're continually clearing, it's a series of, you're constantly processing, your head is up, taking in information on what's happening in the structure, right?
Hmm.
It's not I only take a snapshot in the room. It's a continuous assessment of the situation visually, audit, like what I hear, what I see,
Hmm.
right? And then I'm making decisions based off how that situation changes, right? When I'm coming through a door, before I approach the door, I'm not hugged up on the wall. We've all seen it in CQB. Where are most guys' heads that are not the number one man? They're
Like,
pointed
oh,
down at the ground. They're
yeah, yeah,
either
okay.
down at the ground or looking at the guy's back in
Hmm.
front of them. They're not up looking forward. And the number one man is typically looking through his objective lens on whatever optic he has, right? His field of view is not open. His head is not up,
Okay.
right? So in terms of like, yes, I'm constantly taking that information, and now my approach to the door is, I'm sure mine's going to be, unique to Jesse's, but I am not following the wall and then making a hard right turn into the door.
Okay.
I'm not stopping in the doorway. My most aggressive movement is going to be through the doorway. And then everything else, I'm decelerating into the specific point I need to get to in the room so that I'm able to shoot while I'm moving. Right. But
Yeah.
the doorway, and someone put up there, the fatal funnel argument is a moot point, send the whole team through it. You're fucking retarded, dude. You don't know what you're talking about. Right? If that's how you feel, it's the fatal funnel. Don't put the team through it, then get out of the house.
Hmm.
Right. And when you're doing CQB, you're looking at dominating the structure and dominating the rooms, right? Occupying the space and clearing either ballistically or visually all of the places, right, that need to be cleared that you're going to stand.
Hmm.
If we agree that the fatal funnel is a dangerous place, I would say the hallways and stairwells are the second most dangerous places. So from a
Yeah.
principal standpoint, I'm going to choose techniques that minimize the amount of time I'm in those most dangerous places. Right. So
Yeah.
rather than, hey, this technique over that technique, just apply a principle based approach to it. Right. We would all agree that there's about 3 rules in CQB that you absolutely will never violate. Right. First and foremost is I'm not going to stop moving in the most dangerous places. I would say that's number one. The second one, in terms of entering a structure, I'm never going to come more than 1 foot off the wall or off of impediments in there, like furniture off the wall. Right.
Hmm.
That way, it's a team sport. The sectors remain
Yeah.
open.
Yeah.
Right. And the third one would be I'm never going to collapse past 1 meter off the muzzle of the guy that I first meet in my primary sector. If I don't violate those 3 rules, everything else I can bend the shit out of. Right. Because as you know, can you hit your absolute point of domination or the exact spot you're supposed to be in most real structures?
No, I mean, there's all,
No,
like you said, furniture and other items in the room.
there's furniture, there's shit, hoarder stuff,
Yeah.
right? Even if there's just a pathway through the door, but the sectors don't change.
Yeah.
Right. But we're forced into a way that is the way that is laid out. Right. And you have to make the best of that. Um, but with that, it presents a whole other group of issues where now there's a lot of shit in the room. There's more places to hide. There's more places to be ambushed.
Hmm.
Right. So I would look at all those things as like, hey, this is a more dangerous place. It's like a hallway in a room. I want to minimize the amount of time I'm in there. Right. But in order to do that, I have to leverage individual officer skill sets
Hmm.
need to be at a very high level where I don't have to commit a ton of active thought into solving problems ballistically or with lethal force. That just has to kind of run. Right. So when it goes back to the training side, I'd ask, like, why do more teams and NTOA, why do they choose a limb pen technique of CQB or what they would say a more deliberate, slower way to do CQB than dynamic?
Um, I mean, I can't speak for NTUA. I don't really follow their stuff very much, but I think the
Okay,
argument, if I would steelman that
in your
argument,
opinion,
yeah,
in your opinion, why do teams choose a slower version of CQB versus a faster version?
yeah. So like on a clearance where you don't, the suspect's location is not known. There's no driving stimulus. The idea is that they're clearing it. They're clearing the structure, and he could be at any point in there, and they don't know specifically where he's at. Then the faster that they're moving, the harder it's going to be for like processing the information, for getting accurate shots, those types of things.
So,
The quicker
so,
you're moving through it.
so why do teams choose a slower way of CQB over a faster way?
Well, like in that example that I gave, what do you mean?
Yeah. Okay. Is it because it's harder or
I
because the
mean,
skill level is lower? This is
Both.
where
Yeah.
it has no, it's not both. It's because so Lim Pen was taught, the guys that came up with Lim Pen or high threat CQB, it was taught to teach patrol officers with very low skill level to give them a system to search buildings. That comes straight from the guy who created that shit,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, so I would say it's for lower skill level people.
Yeah.
Right. So when you see teams like NTOA, they're what they promote to teams are like, we're a Lim Pen team. Cool. You are a lower skill level team. And I understand that. We don't have time to train. We don't have resources to train. Nobody's willing to train to get better. You get
Mm-hmm.
what you get and just go with that. And it's going to work. It's going to work right up to the point where you're opposed. And then it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Right. You ever heard like that by the time we realize our own mediocrity, it's usually too late. Right. That is, you're using hope as your primary tactic. I hope no one opposes us. And then you're going, the outcome is going to be what you get. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than the idea of like, and I get told this all the time where it's like, I'm not trying to run to my death. No one is.
Yeah.
Jesse, have you ever ran to your death on target?
No.
I don't think that's in anyone's wheelhouse, but the mentality is I'm willing to get into a position where I'm going to find the adversary, right? And the idea is like most of the targets on the military side or law, like you don't know where the guy is.
Can I
You could have,
respond to that and run to the
yeah,
death thing real quick? Just to kind of steelman the position, I think that comes when they're talking about, like we kind of discussed this earlier, narcotics specifically, and not being able to assume that level of risk. And I'm not taking a position on that, but I will take a position on like an active shooter. Like I think like on an active shooter in a school, that's like the Super Bowl of law enforcement, right? That your willingness to engage with that guy is higher, I guess, or can be higher for some people than their willingness to move at a dynamic pace for the preservation of evidence. And that's I know that's kind of like the low end argument or whatever. But that would be the pushback that it would get. Like if it's an active shooter, if it's kids that are getting killed, like I'm going to sprint to that as fast as I can to do everything I can to stop that. And yeah, I don't know. Kind of want to pitch that back to you and see what you think about that.
I mean, I think that if the willingness to do your job, right, whether it's, a guy that's already in the process of shooting, I love that. Yeah, you've got to go save lives,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if you go in, to a warrant service or whatever, you don't know what he's going to do, right?
Correct.
And what I believe is that I'm still going to dominate that the same way as an active shooter, right? I'm going in there with the willingness to win,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm going to rely heavily on my hard skills, right? If the conditions legally, we can do this, we're going to knock and announce and go in and hit it fast and hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the conditions require me to be fast and aggressive, I'm going to do that. If the conditions allow me to be, more methodical and I can sneak around, I'm going to do that, right?
Yeah,
But I think, go ahead.
That's perfect, Matt, because the real crux here, like the real problem with the training side is if you're always training slowly, or if that's your main format of training, then you lack the step ladder that Matt just described for being able to escalate or de-escalate your action based on what's going on. And you lack the skills, honestly, is like the main thing. Because if you can't be dynamic and be fast and be aggressive, dominate that space, mass fires inside of a structure as a team, because all you're ever doing is this slow sort of, almost like fairy tale self-preservation style tactic,
Mhm.
you lack that sliding scale. And then the other thing that Matt touched on earlier is when you have developed those skills as a team, when it is time for you to scale back and, set a perimeter and siege warfare somebody or starve them out or cut power or whatever's
Yeah.
going on,
Yeah.
how hard is that comparatively to, active shooter response?
Mhm.
And officers, I mean, I know for a fact that a huge thing that officers struggle with is just time to train.
Mhm.
And so if training time is a very limited resource, which it is, if you're not orienting that training time towards the skills that matter most for officers, that is a major fundamental problem as well. Like that is a complete inversion of priority.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that you should train the hard skills like way more than what we do. No one's going to say that cops get trained enough. That's 100% true. I think that where we disagree isn't like I could get behind the dynamic for when it's time to go, when it's time to now go into the structure and to do the CQB, to do the clearance. Like I can get behind the dynamic. My hang up is, is the thing that happens right before that, and whether or not our suspect actually knows this is the cops coming. And this is kind of where this started, because these last three like videos that I've seen that just kind of popped up, and there's a lot of them out there where it appears, and again, you don't know what's in the suspect's mind at the time, but it's reasonable or that the suspect didn't know that it was cops because of how either the approach went or how the knock and announce went or something to that effect. And he took an action that he otherwise wouldn't have taken had he known in his mind, like, okay, those are the cops. Like, I'm not going to oppose them. But if he's thinking like, okay, this is someone coming to rob me, his response to that is going to be a lot different than if he thinks, oh, the cops are coming to arrest me.
I would agree, but I also think you're making, and maybe it's your experience, but you're making a lot of assumptions about what people are going to think and do, right? Which is very hard, right? In the reality, until we don't know what someone's going to do until they've already done it,
Yeah.
right? So we
It,
deal from a
it,
planning standpoint, we deal with most likely courses of action, most dangerous course of action. And we
Yeah.
always plan to execute for the most dangerous course of action.
Yeah.
Right. And the idea that, well, we don't know what someone's going to do. Are we going to create situations that make them do the wrong? Well, you don't know till afterwards. So if that is what drives it, don't fucking go in there.
No, I guess what I mean is, so like specifically, like I just watched one where they do 8 seconds of announcements. That's 3 announcements. It takes 8 seconds. And from in that 8-second window, they do 3 announcements, and then boom, they breach the door and they make entry. And it's reasonable. Again, you can't get in these people's minds, but if this guy's asleep, and the first thing he hears is boom, the doors comes getting rammed open and getting broken down, like he doesn't know that that's the cops. And that's why it's put in there. Like, there's no
that just
amount of
That's the goal, man, is that they don't know you're coming, right? Then call them an hour before and go in there, or don't go in. Surround them out, get on the fucking PA, and have the dude walk out.
That's what I'm saying. Like it sounds like a failure in the technique of the announcement, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Like that doesn't sound like we're talking about CQB. It's like if the failure was in the technique of the announcement, then bring a loudspeaker out there with like lights, sirens, light that whole area up.
Yep.
Blah blah blah. Like have everything locked down. If that's and then I still think to with what where Matt and I align ourselves is, if the decision then is still made to go in the structure, then it's still the greater survivability and chance for success is going to come from aggressive action. Once the decision is made, okay, yeah, now we're going in. Even though you had your big announcement like that, okay, we mitigated the guy who's thinking it's not cops. He lives in a rough neighborhood. His house has been broken into 4 times. Like, okay, we mitigated that by fixing our announcement technique, but that doesn't mean that we implement a different tactic when it comes to clearance and the takedown of the structure.
Yeah, and I can get behind that, actually. I mean, I don't think we're out of alignment on that. I think that like the problem I'm seeing is a disconnect in the announcement process of that knock and announce, of like whether or not they really are knowing it. And I think that what's going to end up happening is that if it happens enough, there's going to be some bad litigation. There's going to be some bad case law.
You're a cop, experienced cop, Travis. How should they knock and announce then?
I mean,
give me the solution to it.
Yeah, case by case.
It can't be case by case. It can't be case by case. This is give me the solution. If you have an opinion about the knock and announce is not good, what is the solution?
Yeah, like you said, a surrender, like a surround and call out with loudspeakers, noise, lights, sirens, all that stuff. Like that's ideal for letting him know that, like, hey, this is the cops. But it is, I mean, like I have to push back a little bit as far as case by case, like the Dallas one that we were talking about. Like they had to navigate quite a bit of stuff to get to the door to actually like knock on the door. Like they had to go past, like down a driveway, around, encounter some dogs, get up some stairs, navigate a gate before they're even able to actually like physically knock on that door. As opposed to like, suppose they're serving a warrant at the front door of a house that's right off the street. There's not as many obstacles to get to. So like the way that I would knock on the front door of the front house, like might be different than the way I would handle knock and announce on the front door of a front house that's open to the public might be different than if I'm really trying to get to that target I've got to navigate through a bunch of stuff to get to.
Yeah, but I believe knock and announce refers to knocking on the front door of the structure, not the gate of the structure.
I'd have to look into see if I don't know if it's sufficient, just like a loudspeaker, like without physically knocking on the door. But if we pull up with the Bearcat, we turn the siren on and we get on the PA and we're like, this is the police department, so-and-so at this residence, come out. I think that meets the requirement of like not, quote unquote, knocking on the door.
Then what if he says, fuck you, I'm not coming out?
Well, if he says, fuck you, I'm not coming out, well, then you have a barricade.
Yeah. So did we make this situation safer or more dangerous?
I don't think, barricades are not actually, I don't say they're not that dangerous. Like everything has the potential to be dangerous, right?
So if he barricades himself in there with his family, is that a hostage rescue?
Well, I mean, there's a difference between like a hostage and a captive, and like if he's holding them hostage and threatening to
there is no fucking difference, dude. Is there innocence in there? It's a hostage situation, right? That is how, from talking to every cop I've seen, if there is a guy in there with a gun and there are innocents in there who don't want to play in the problem, captive, hostage, it's semantics. Now, is it a hostage situation?
Potentially, yeah, it could be.
So what do you have to do?
To solve that problem?
Yep.
Yeah, that would be a hostage rescue.
Yep. So you have to do that slow or fast?
Yeah, the dynamic. Yeah, 100%.
Right. So you've already made the situation. You created the hostage rescue by being slow, and now you have to go fast.
Yep.
That's where I see the flaw in this logic.
No, and I agree 100%. And I like to say there's no solutions, there's only trade-offs, right? So in that scenario where the guy like takes his family hostage and then now you've just generated a hostage rescue, 100%. Like if we had a crystal ball and we could know that like that was going to be the response, then like just a straight up dynamic from the jump would be better if we had a crystal ball.
I agree. But you don't ever know. You don't ever know what the suspect's going to do until he does it. The same way we don't know what bad guys are going to do until they do it, right? But we deal in what we do know. We know the most likely course of action, and we know the most